how important do communication skills become in this
Oh man,
thing, and how do you build them, and how do you improve upon them?
communication skills are super important. Um, Not just with clear communication, you just not speak out or communicate your thoughts, but you outline them or you articulate your thought in such a way that the recipient is able to understand that easily. Okay, let me give you an example. When you write a 6-page document, the writer has the most context because they are writing it. They dive deep on a subject and for days or weeks to write a particular, or maybe months in some cases, to write a 6-page document. So they have the most context. But when you are writing, you cannot assume the readers have the same context. So you have to articulate your thoughts in such a way that the reader is able to navigate the 6 page and get what you're trying to say. And that comes with clear communication. So communication skills are super important. How to build on top, how to build that. I'm still learning. If you find resources, then I'm more than happy to take it from you or read it on Wisdom Geek. So so that is something that is a critical piece where I want to improve myself.
Yeah, I think you already mentioned it, which is somewhat similar to me writing blog posts. But when you try and explain the thing to someone else, you one, you have to communicate it effectively. Two, you have that, I don't know what it is called, feeling that I cannot be wrong. So
Yeah.
you do some more excessive research just to make sure that
So,
you're not writing the wrong thing.
so in my second year of college, I started doing a lot of workshops. I started with a Python workshop where I was teaching my fellow students or, or 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 my juniors, or in some cases even my seniors, about writing a program, working with Linux, networking. So I did a bunch of sessions, and that helped me build a lot of communication skills. And I think for this I would like to attribute my parents. So this is a very fun story. I was sharing it with my wife as well the other day. So when I was in class fourth, when I was 9 years old, for the first time I stood on stage to read news in our morning assembly. I And obviously it's a very scary situation to be in, right? When you're just getting on stage for the first time. And my so to prepare for that, my dad bought a microphone and made me practice at home, so that when I go onto stage, it's not a different environment for me. And that eased a lot of things out. So it came so natural that I was like, okay, this makes sense now. That I did practice a similar situation back in home before standing on stage. And these minor things have helped me improve my communication skills. There are times when I get scared to say the first word, or maybe have the first conversation. But once I try to get into it, that rhythm kicks in, and that is profoundly beautiful. The best way to improve on your communication skills is to communicate, is to put yourself in the spotlight, and don't fear about being judged.
On lines of communication skills, how do you ensure that you get feedback for improving yourself?
I would reach out to my peers and my managers for feedback, and my mentors as well. So everybody has a different set of context. So when I reach out to peers, what I would do is I would set up a meeting. But before doing that, I would reach out to them very respectfully that, hey, I want to receive a feedback on my particular progression. Would you be able to give me? Would you be able to spare 30 minutes or 15 minutes so that I can understand what to do, how to improve on things, and how to build better? And if they agree, then I would go ahead and set up that meeting. I also try to document all these conversations so that I can find a pattern over time and figure out what are the things that are there any issues that are coming back after a while, or or are there things on which I've improved upon.
And how do your one-on-ones go? What is there some structure to it? Or you already mentioned one thing which I think is critical is setting the expectation of the meeting beforehand, saying,
Yeah.
hey, this meeting is regarding my feedback. Because a couple of times I've had general conversations with my manager and I go, hey, can you give me some feedback? And since he hasn't had time to process it or he doesn't have that frame of mind, he just says, yeah, everything's fine. So that is also a key thing, that you set a dedicated one-on-one for feedback. But how do you go about that one-on-one? Is there some process to it, or do you just say, hey, I want feedback, and then take it from there?
Me and my manager, we have a shared document where we can drop in our thoughts and agenda items that we want to discuss. We have multiple sections in the documents. One, the first section is called the highlights, which basically outlines the things that I'm doing good, and the leadership thing, the leadership qualities that I'm demonstrating within the team. The next is a section called future, followed by next, and then finally previous. So the primary content of the document is in the next and the highlight section. The next is basically, we use this section to define a list of agenda items that we want to immediately have a discussion with each other in our next one-on-one. The future is generally used for items which we want to discuss, but maybe it can wait for a while and we can catch it up on later. And once the items in the next list is done, we move that in the past. So this having this as a strategy has worked beneficial for both of us. um, Before or during the meeting, we both have the absolute understanding of what is it that we want to discuss, what is it that we are trying to discuss. One thing that I've changed in my feedback acceptance or receiving processes, I don't ask feedback in every one-on-one. um, I think 7 days or 5 working days is too short of a time for things to reflect. So I would generally split it over a month, or maybe 3 weeks or 2 weeks, but it depends, right? That a month works for me. So coming back to the question, how I organize my one-on-one is we both have this shared document that we use as a template to set our agenda items. This gives us a reflection of how I have progressed over a period of time. Are there things which is coming back? Are there things which I have completely eradicated? I've improved upon. This also gives us a good spectrum or understanding of what's my progression to next level looks like. Am I demonstrating such skills? So this documentation helps that there as well.
I really love the idea of having a document that has a history as well, that brings in a lot of transparency.
Yeah.
So the highlights section, it has both things that you've done well and things that you need to improve on. So is it divided into subsections, or how does that look like?
That is a very so this is something that I question myself as well. So I don't have a section called lowlights. Okay, highlights is generally is the only top section. I think one of the reason my manager has done it, I guess, is probably because whenever I look at the document, I should feel good. But on the contrary, the contents of the document does have things to improve. So whenever me and my manager have a conversation, I ensure to put that as a line item in the document itself, so that I am able to circle back. So even if there is no lowlights as a section, but I'm sure there's a lot of lowlights in the internal document itself.
Makes sense. But yeah, I really love the concept of just having a document and then using that. I've usually I've not documented any of our conversations that I've had.
So this really helps you when you want to communicate, right? I'll tell you why. Okay, let me give you an example where this helps. Earlier, a lot of time, what used to happen is I had a one-on-one. Right after the call, I would remember, oh, I missed this. I wanted to talk about this, and that would now that topic would have to wait for next 7 days, and I have to remember it. But with documentation, such situations still occur, but the number of times they occur is much less than what it had been before.
Over the years, since you've documented a lot of things, I'm sure there have been some things that you've learned from generally feedback or just talking to people. And was there anything that in your experience that took you too long to learn and you wish
Uh,
you
one thing that uh, I'm still
struggled?
struggling with. One thing that I'm still struggling with is learning to say no. It's a super important skill, which I think there's a lot of scope for improvement for me.
Can you? I can resonate with it very well because been there. But can you give any specific examples of that?
I would decline.
That's
But
one way of practicing your skill.
yeah, I would have. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I will decline here. No.
And over the years, what's been your biggest mistake that you've made professionally? And what have you learned from it, I guess? This is not an Amazon interview, but
What is the biggest mistake? There are many. One that I can recall of is okay. Your self confidence is very important, and it's much more important not to be a better person or do your job well, but for a majority of factors out there. And no matter what, um, don't let it get affected. So that is one mistake. The other mistake would be not okay. When you're young, you're always ready to push yourself, right? Um, be it late night work, working for 7 days straight with bare minimum sleep and things like that. You're constantly pushing, which may be a good thing, maybe a bad thing, depends on the age. But your health is important. So I think these are the two things that I feel that I could have done better.
I think those are beautiful insights.
So yeah, I think these are the two primary things that I can recall of. I could have done better. I could have not ignored my health completely. Um, yeah, but that is something that I'm trying to do better now.
We talked about biggest mistakes. What have been some things that you got right just the first time, or you just got them right and you were happy about those things?
One of them is luck. I was very lucky. Um, and the other was networking. I got to interact with the right set of people. And that these two things were helped me. Apart from that, there was some efforts on the communication skills which I did. I was able to communicate effectively, and that again gets attributed to the workshops and sessions that I conducted during my college days. So those, keeping everything that into consideration, I feel few things that worked out with me was I was able to communicate clearly with the right set of people on the right set of topics. Um, and so to be honest, I was at the right place at the right time, and these set and the culmination of this was something which I've been able to cherish. Um, if I so I was very lucky to uh, have amazing set of mentors, right? Which I've already we discussed during the beginning of this. I've had amazing set of mentors. I had amazing set of people who was so beautiful um, in their own way, and they were like, Vikash, this is something that you should do. This is some. I'll give you an example. Uh, this was during my first semester of college. So I didn't score. I wasn't a 9 pointer out of 10, so I wasn't the best in my college studies, and I was still struggling to perform. And there was one of my college mentors and seniors, and he said, Vikash, you have two ways. Either you go all into college education and try to score a perfect 10 and try to get a job or get into the industry, and is the other way is to get into open source, get yourself completely technical, try to know ins and outs of the system, and then enter the industry. And you can enter the industry using both the routes. And that resonated with my thought process as well, that yeah, this does make sense. What should I do? But to be honest, it was not a difficult decision for me to go through the open source route or the community route, because that is something that always made me feel, yeah, this has more rewards. My return on investment will be much higher in this path, whereas going through the entire course curriculum. This was also because I was able to find a sweet spot of my interest uh, on particular topics, and then building on top of that. So finding that sweet spot takes a lot of time. Thank you, Saransh, for having me here. I really enjoyed our conversations together. I It reminded me of some parts of my memory lane that I had not visited in a while. So thank you for ensuring that I relived those moments again.
Yeah, I went through our conversation history over the years to just pick up some things that I've learned or we've discussed, and it was also fun to relive some of the jokes that we made, which I won't discuss here. But it definitely was uh, refreshing to just go through conversations and walk down the memory lane.
Definitely, it was amazing. Thank you so much.
Also, I would like to invite viewers to our Discord server, wherein we have such discussions, and you'll also get to know about future interviews and discussions. So Vikash will also be there in the server to answer any questions that you have. And I already thank him in advance for that.
Indeed, thank you so much, Saransh. I would definitely be on your Discord server, and I'm more than happy to help people with mentorship or referrals in whatever capacity I can. So thank you so much.
And there will be a link in the comments or probably the description for the invitation to the Discord server.